In the stone video, I set up how I want my ground to be. One, I want a tree, and I want a small hill. Before I get into doing ground texture, we gotta make a tree. And I'll be honest, I've never made a tree. First time doing that. So I gotta figure that out. But let's just jump into it and see how I'm gonna make the tree and do all the ground texturing.
This being my first experience with anything from Woodland Scenics, whether it's their trees or any of their other materials, turned out to be a good learning experience. The first hurdle for me was making it kind of look like tree branches, like the way they bend and stuff like that. And I think I achieved the look fairly well, but there were some in slightly weird angles, I think. Since they get covered with the flocking or ground cover or whatever the bushy material is, I think it'll be fine. But using that material with gluing it and attaching it for me was a bit harder. I wasn't sure how much glue I needed to use. Should I put glue on just the ends of the branches, or should I put glue all the way up to the base of the branch from the main trunk? So without knowing that, I kind of just decided to go from halfway up the branch all the way to the tip and glue it. Turns out that was a bit of a mistake. Another mistake I made was not waiting for all the glue to be ready before dipping the tree in the pile of flocking material. Some of the glue was set and it was clear and tacky and ready to go. But other parts of it that I think I put on after the first set of glue weren't quite ready when I put on the material. So since I got impatient and instead of waiting until, everything was clear and tacky, I just dipped it into a pile of the flocking type material. And now as I work on the project more, some of that flocking has been falling off. But like I said, it was a learning experience. Now I know to put more glue on the tree and not to be so impatient and wait for the glue to, actually set before attaching the material. So once I had the tree finished up and ready to go, and after a little bit of thought, I decided to attach the bottom of the bridge section that spans between the shop and the house to the shop roof. I wanted that attached so it would be easier to pull off that roof section. It's kind of important for later on. And once I got that all glued and drying, I attached some balsa to the side of the diorama base because the shed was overhanging the edge and I just wanted the shed to have a full base there. Then I used hot glue to attach the house to the base and the tree to the base. To build up the area around the tree, I grabbed some paper towels, ripped them up, and wrapped and balled them up around the tree to give the ground some more height and a bit more of a natural build-up to the trunk. Using hot glue again, I attached those paper towels to the base of the tree and the diorama's base, and then I used more to give it a gentler incline around the base of the tree. Once I did all that, I added a little bit of paper towel next to the blacksmith shop by the pathway to slope it up into the shop. Once I had all of that prep work done, I mixed up a batch of fast mache and I spread it all over the canvas baseboard of the diorama. But this is where I ran into another problem. I should have waited for this step to put the 3D printed failures down that I'm using for the path from the house to the store. If I had, they would have the kind of dirt texture underneath and in between them, and they would sit very well within the fast mache. I overlooked this problem, and now it's kind of, biting me in the ass. So, lesson kind of learned. If you're using thin things for a walkway, wait until you put down the ground texture to put them on. Just probably a better idea. The area for the path in front of the house and shop, I kept a bit thinner. It may have been worn down and packed down from people walking on it. And the area that's behind the shop and the house, I made a little bit thicker. Not very thick, but a bit thicker. But then I left some room at the corners to add some weight to the diorama to stop it from getting too much of a bow or too much of a twist in it as the fast mache dried, because the fast mache is a bit wet when you do go and first make it, and it does take a while to dry. Once I got all that fast mache on there, I just set it off to the side and I let it start drying. But I still had a good amount of fast mache left that I didn't use. and I didn't want it to go to waste like a lot of the plaster did during the last step. So I grabbed some thin plywood scraps that I'd gotten from work and used the rest of it there. The first one, I tried to spread the fast mache evenly along a thin strip of board. Then I tried different thicknesses in each corner for the second one. And on the third one, I used whatever I had left of the fast mache and made a slight slope over a larger area, building up a good amount on one end and thinning it out towards the other. These tests were mostly just to see how long it would take for the fast mache to dry, depending on its thickness and the amount.
24 hours later.
Starting with these test pieces, this one here it's almost hardened enough to be done. On this one, where I did the four corners, it's pretty hard there. These other ones are still fairly soft. This one is just completely... This end is fairly soft. This corner is good because that's thin. And you can see there's spots here from the wood glue. There's been a little bit of stuff falling off of the tree, which I'm gonna have to glue back on. But this is still very wet.
The next day.
But for the most part, that is like 95% dry. These two are dry. These two are still kind of wet. This one is still very wet. Up here, I kind of expect it to still be wet. I would think it would be kind of dry down here, but no, it's still pretty wet. Then we go to the main thing, which I still haven't glued the tree stuff on yet, or back on. It's still kind of wet. It's been about 48 hours, and maybe I did put a little too much on in a lot of it. So yeah, a lot of this, I think it's gonna take like 72 hours at least to dry.
You get the idea.
This one was what, like 24 hours or so, and this was mostly dry. Same with this one. This one's finally dry. This one is finally dry. They're all of them are dry here. These two are dry. This, you can kind of see the color shift, where it's like here, it's dry. Here is dry. Like these sides are dry, but the center here is still pretty wet. But the main thing, this is fully dry. From everything that I can tell, everything is dry, but that's all dry. Yeah. So everything is dry. Actually, there isn't that much of a bow in it. Okay, so that big one, I didn't record when it was fully dry, but I think it took about like 5 days to fully dry, just because of how thick it was on the one end. But most of the tests and the diorama were set within 72 hours. And now I can move on to cutting my finger and putting shingles on the roof of all the buildings. But yeah, that's all I got for this step today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please do all that algorithm stuff. It does help the channel, and I hope you have a royal day.